Let's be honest, in today's world, things can happen in the snap of a finger. And it's really difficult as a leader or manager to anticipate every little thing that might go wrong in the world, in your business, in your location, whatever the scenario. It's really difficult to try to plan for all the different crises or different emergencies that happen. So we're going to talk about the three main things that you need as a part of your emergency action plan. And this emergency action plan we're going to talk about is a general framework for different emergencies that might happen or different crises that might happen, like natural disasters, data breaches, product recalls, security breaches, physical attacks on your space, all of those things. So we're going to talk about very, very high level how to build out an emergency action plan and what are the key components that you need as part of your emergency action plan. Okay, so first we need to ask, what is an emergency action plan? If you haven't heard of an emergency action plan, it's essentially the rules of who and what is going to happen when. It's going to be a step-by-step guide. And we're going to break this out into three kind of major sections. The first one is going to be your evacuation process. The second one is going to be your communication plan. And the third thing is going to be business continuity, or a plan for business continuity. So the first thing that you want to do is create an evacuation plan or an evacuation procedure. This is really important in the event of, like, let's say a physical attack on your space, natural disasters, or just things like a fire outbreak, for example. What is your process for getting people out of the building? The thing that you want to think through when you're planning an emergency evacuation procedure is the floor layout. What is the floor plan? Are there clearly marked exit signs that are going to be available even if the power goes out? Are there any hazards or things that might be in the way that would prevent people from getting out of the building? For example, if a door automatically locks or something like that, is there going to be some sort of hazard that's going to prevent people from getting out of the building? And the last thing you want to think through is, what are the special needs accommodations that you should have or that you should be communicating? For example, if somebody is in a wheelchair, if they're not able to climb downstairs, you want to make sure that you can direct them to a place where there is a ramp where they would be able to get out of the building safely. When you create your emergency evacuation procedure, you want to make sure that it is up to date, first of all, with all the floor plans, any new construction that's happening, but you also want to make sure that you're communicating with your employees, with your customers or your suppliers. You want to make sure that you're communicating what that evacuation plan is ahead of time. So maybe reviewing it once a quarter, something like that. The second thing that you want to do when you're building out an action plan, and to me this is one of the most important things, is developing a communications plan. Now, my background is in marketing and communications, and to me, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies where they have entire teams dedicated to crisis communication, crisis kind of emergency communications, that this is their full-time job. There might not be crisis all the time, but they have a plan and a communication strategy. The important thing that you want to do when building out a communications plan is making sure that you have multiple channels in which you're planning on communicating and drafting out those communications ahead of time. Now, a great resource is a company like Dial My Calls, who's actually sponsoring this video, who has a really great platform. So I actually wanted to pull this up. In the event that an emergency happens, it's really important to make sure that your communication tools are going to be able to execute the process no matter what's happening in your situation. But to me, the thing that would be really cool if you're looking at building out an emergency action plan is not only one-way communication, so sending out alerts saying, this is happening, this is what's going on, evacuate the building, all of those things. But there's also two-way communications, then also getting back from stakeholders, are you okay? Are you in the vicinity? Are you making sure, can you confirm with us that you're in a safe location, all of these things. The last thing I want to touch on in relation to Dial My Calls is you can actually integrate them into your system. So whether you have MailChimp, HubSpot, however you communicate with your stakeholders normally, you're able to actually integrate with this platform so you don't have to manually upload every single individual if you want to communicate with them. I'm going to put a link to Dial My Calls below so that everybody can find them. And again, it's free to sign up. So make sure to check it out if you're looking to build out your communications plan for your emergency action plan. And the third thing that you want to do when you're planning your emergency action plan is planning for business continuity. Now, this might not be something that you would think necessarily a lot about because you just assume that everyone's going to do their work. But in the event of, let's say, like a natural disaster, you want to make sure that the people who, if let's say your entire building goes away, let's say in a tornado, your entire building is gone, all of the on-site servers are destroyed, people's computers aren't working, you want to make sure that people are still able to access, let's say, data that might be on a server. So by creating an emergency action plan for business continuity, you make sure that you're duplicating a lot of your data sets, or you're making sure that you're having, let's say, one server on-site and one server off-site. But there's a lot of different things that you can do to make sure that you are your business is continuing to operate. And the thing that you want to think about when you're talking about business continuity is outlining what are the essential functions and are they going to be able to do their jobs in each scenario. For example, do you have essential businesses like accounting and finance, HR, human resources, IT, or some sort of information technology? What about manufacturing? What about logistics? Are those functions going to be able to continue to operate, or what special accommodations should we plan for in the event that there is an emergency or crisis that we need to think about? By creating a plan, a stable plan, a proactive plan, you take a lot of the reactivity and uncertainty out of a crisis, out of an emergency. Even though you don't know how everything is going to play out, at least you have a structure and a plan in place to communicate with employees, to evacuate your building, and to make sure that business operations continue. And with that, if you're interested in actually getting a platform like Dial My Calls, I have linked to them below. If you have anything else that you would add in the event of a crisis, of an emergency, please leave it in the comments below. Give a thumbs up if you thought this video was helpful. And I have new videos every Tuesday, so I'll see you on the next one.